Blizzard has finally released the details of Season of Discovery Phase 2, set to release on February 8th, and there are quite a few new details to get excited about. Leveling buffs, a new PvP event that's very different from Ashen Vale, new class sets, Gnomeregan raid details, it's a lot, so let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to talk about here is leveling. We already know the focus of this phase will be leveling from 25 to 40, so for characters who haven't reached level 25 yet, a 50% increased experience buff will be given as a catch-up mechanic. For players who are already at level 25, we will have a few new things to help us on our way to level 40. In Phase 2, BFD will still be relevant content. Completing this raid will give players a sizable chunk of experience, and much like playing World of Warcraft, it's something you'll still be doing in your mid to late 30s. Also, Waylaid supply crates will reward an increased amount of experience for completing them, so that's a welcome change for Phase 2 as well. It's also worth mentioning that the current world buffs from Ashen Vale and BFD will only be usable through level 39. The devs decided not to have the new world buffs stay relevant into future phases because if they keep adding them, they don't want to end up with too many of them later in the game, which I think is a good call on their part. Next is Gnomeregan. The raid has been confirmed as a 10-man raid with 6 bosses, including one brand new boss, and completely reimagined boss fights just like in BFD. The devs really went all in on loot this time because Gnomeregan will have over 100 new items, including more than 3 times the number of epics that BFD had. New item sets, up-leveled quests and rewards, new profession quest chains, and even some just-for-fun items like these. Also, just like BFD, there will be a new world buff linked to this raid. Oh, and I can't forget to mention that for the new sets, instead of specific set pieces dropping, it'll be a token that everyone can roll on and turn in for that set piece. These are all really great changes and additions that make me excited to start purging the city of leper gnomes, but what did Blizzard decide to do about Gnomeregan's launch? A few weeks ago, the devs asked for some feedback on whether to have the raid available on February 8th or delay its release by a week. After what seemed like much internal discussion and community feedback, the raid will be available at the start of Phase 2 on February 8th, but the first 2 resets will be weekly instead of every 3 days. This seems weird to me, but they explain that the reason for doing this is that they want to allow more intense players to level fast and get into the raid right away, but they also don't want to make more casual players feel like they have to rush to level 40 and get left behind if they don't. Personally, I would have just delayed the raid by a week, but I commend the devs for coming up with a solution that's much more of a compromise. The first reset will take place during weekly maintenance on February 13th, and the second will be the next week on the 20th. After that, the normal 3-day reset rotation will begin for Gnomeregan. The part of this next phase that might have me the most excited is the new PvP event in Stranglethorn Vale, and it is very different than the Ashen Vale event in Phase 1. When the Blood Moon rises in Stranglethorn Vale, a 30-minute free-for-all PvP event will begin. For the duration of the event, killing other players will award you with a new currency, and thankfully there will be no PvE objectives. If you want to, players will still be able to form groups, but the Blood Loa looks unfavorably at grouping up, so there will be some kind of penalty placed on groups during the event. We don't know what that is yet, but hopefully the penalty is significant enough to keep solo play viable, but not so significant that giant 40-man skirmishes can't happen. Oh, and there will also be a giant blood troll that's going to roam the zone during the event, much like the Fell Reaver in Hellfire Peninsula, so that's another fun factor to keep an eye out for. This new event sounds super chaotic, and I can't wait to see how it goes. There will also be new quests available to complete for Arathi Basin reputation, so it sounds like the rep won't come from just being in the zone during the event, which is a good change in my opinion. The currency earned from the event can be spent at a vendor at the Gurubashi Arena for things like new class-specific gear items, as well as these faction-agnostic mounts. That means you can get both mounts regardless of what faction you're in. In order to avoid the unpredictability that happened in Ashen Vale, the Blood Moon event will start every 3 hours, and speaking of Ashen Vale, going forward in Phase 2, the Ashen Vale PvP event will also be changed to start on a 3-hour timer as well. In order to avoid these events happening at the same time, the Ashen Vale event will be scheduled to take place an hour after the Stranglethorn event. Okay, so next let's talk about the rune situation for Phase 2. It's confirmed that we'll be getting runes for the belt and boot slots. Blizzard gave us a sneak peek at 2 of the new runes coming to each class, and a ton more were data mined, but that's enough information to merit a whole separate video. For this video, I'm just briefly showing all the runes that were confirmed by Blizzard in their Phase 2 informational post, which will be linked in the description down below. Something new that's coming in Phase 2 are quality of life enhancements that don't take up any rune slots, and these are going to be called skill books. Skill books will be dropping from 5-man dungeons and are designed to reduce some pain points for certain classes. For example, classes with important buffs might have those buff durations increased and the mana cost reduced. Based on the data mine descriptions, I think these are some great changes, and I think they found a good balance where quality of life is improved, but in a way that doesn't take away from the feeling of Classic. The last feature of Phase 2 that Blizzard talked about was regarding professions. In Phase 2, professions are getting a lot of love, and it looks like they're aiming to give every profession something to do. There will be 20 brand new recipes across all non-gathering professions, including new epic helms, new enchants, new engineering items, and new alchemy recipes as well. A new quest chain will be available related to professions, and they're actually going to be adding new materials to go along with these new recipes. As an enchanter on my mage and alchemist on my warlock, I really like these new items that can only be used by alchemists and enchanters. It really makes these professions feel more impactful, and that's always a good thing. The new level cap for professions in Phase 2 is going to be 225, and profession specialties will not be a thing until Phase 3. It sounds like they're planning on doing a total overhaul with profession specialties and want some more time to flesh that out, so it'll be exciting to see what they come up with in the future, but for now we don't have to worry about it. And that just about wraps things up for this video. There was a lot revealed to us and even more to discover when Phase 2 launches on the 8th. I'm most excited to see how things are going to play out in the free-for-all Stranglethorn event. What are you most excited for? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.